Ladies and gentlemen, we just finished live letter 79 from Tokyo Game Show. And so it was not held the typical 11 days out. It was held a little bit after that at 1 a.m. on a Sunday morning because that's the right time for it to be at the game show. That does mean it's very short. Also means that it was in Japanese only. This is the second part of the live letters going into patch 6.5. So as we look forward to patch 6.5 and beyond, keep in mind that the timeline on 6.5 is weird. 6.5 itself will start on October 3rd, and then we have 0.51. We'll have some content tied to it, more than typical, and that sounds like it's going to be after EU FanFest, so probably the 24th, maybe? And then the half patch, instead of being the 56 days out, which would put it between EU and JP FanFest, will actually be after JP FanFest. So I'm currently predicting the 16th of January. They haven't confirmed that. We will see. So let's take a look. All right. So that puts it over 100 days out. They did say it's going to be a long time. That's an incredibly long time. Very, very long time. Probably the longest time between a half patch and any patch in the game's history. I don't know that for sure, but we can check. Very, very few, if any, have been that long. No. That's the longest one. As I scroll through every patch, that will be the longest one we've ever had in the game's history. Incredibly long. All right. The translations I'm using here are brought to you by the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit community. They do an incredible job on any of my streams. If you want a link to that, you can always type !translate, and that'll get you through it. Phenomenal that they offer this. The trailers are live, so if you want to go see the trailer in English, it is up. And here we are, Growing Light on the 3rd, and then in the second half of January, we'll be going into part 2. Mid-January there. Don't have an exact date on it. We just know it'll be after JP FanFest. This will include main scenario quests. Keep in mind that the 0.55 is the only half patch that gets MSQ. So the final steps to Endwalker will be in that second half, and we're going to be waiting on that. Tataru's Grand Endeavor will continue. And then, of course, that means that we also will be getting, with our half patch, continuations and the final part of our relic. Somehow further Hildebrand, as well as the Manderville weapons. We're getting more Splendorous tools in the 0.51. Keep in mind, the 0.51 is not just going to be that typical, it sounds like 1 or 2 weeks. Sounds like it's going to be a little bit later, but Criterion is tied to that as well. We haven't had one in a little bit here, but for those of you that have been around a long time, the Alliance quests, the tribal quests, if you do all of them tied to an expansion, so this expansion that's Arxidara, Omicron, and Laparit, there will be a final set of quests tied to that. So if you haven't knocked those out, you have until the 0.55 patch, plenty of time. If you haven't done a single one, there's still plenty of time. So no rush on that. We are getting a dungeon tied to MSQ, the Lunar Subterrane, as well as a trial, the Abyssal Fracture, and its Extreme. This is when we get our final step to the Alliance raid, Myths of the Realm. We get those with the 0.1, 0.3, 0.5 of each expansion. So this, of course, being the 0.5. Thalia will be the last step to our Greek little trilogy here. And we will have an Unreal Trial of Thornton. I think people are pretty excited to see what that looks like. The Criterion system has been something that the content itself was enjoyed, but the reward structure was not ideal. And in response to feedback, they have said that there will be new rewards in the works for Savage Mode, and they are intended to be useful for increasing item level. What's important about this is while there is not anything that you need this item level for at this point, it's important that we give feedback because this is going to help drive what they do in 7.0, because Criterion and Island Sanctuary are both systems that are going to continue into next expansion. So as we look at Alalo Island in patch 6.51, anybody that wants that system to be an alternative gearing system to Savage, keep in mind with the delay that it would actually be really nicely timed, especially if it came on like odd patches on the 0.1 or something. It would be that kind of half step between when the Savage is on farm, but it hasn't yet unlocked, which is usually with the 0.8. So like 0.18 unlocked the 0.0 Savage, 0.38 unlocked the 0.2 Savage, 0.58, keep in mind, is going to end up being like 100 and if I go look at this, 0.58, if we follow the pattern, it's typically 2 weeks after the half patch. So 0.58 would be probably the end of January-ish, and that would unlock the Savage from May. So having another way to get gear is really nice for people that want to play multiple roles. This is also the final step to duty support, making a full lap through the game. This is the MSQ 4-mans from Stormblood, the last set before we moved into the trust support. Now I think they'd like to maybe consider making another lap. They've mentioned exploring 8-man support. We know the trust system can support 8-man. The question is, are they going to go back and do duty support for the previous 8-mans so that people progressing through the MSQ using duty support can do that? Oh, I almost killed that black mage. Leonard, thanks for gifting a sub to Lady, and thanks for everybody that was here doing this live with me and supporting me. I really do appreciate it. It makes a big difference. It really does. Now, in addition to 8-man support, Yoshi has said, but he has not confirmed they will, that they're exploring the possibility of maybe coming up with an alternative duty support method for Crystal Tower. If they support the required 8-mans in normal mode and Crystal Tower, everybody would be able to go through all of MSQ without needing another player. You would still need them for other trial series. You would still need them for raids, the entire storyline to raids. You would need them for all of the other alliance raids. You would also need them for extremes, savages, ultimates, and so on. So I think that the 8-man support would be nice if it's not a big deal. I don't know how big of a deal it is to support just the mandatory ones, just to get people through that gate that is MSQ. But we'll see. But that is officially all 4-man required dungeons are now supported. We are getting some job adjustments. It's just going to be minor ones, nothing major with actions. Keep in mind their effort is going to be geared at actions in the upcoming expansion. And then we have PvP updates as we move into PvP Series 5 and a Crystalline Conflict update with a new map. As we move into Island Sanctuary, more stuff, more stuff, more stuff. Every patch that we talk about that is just more stuff. So if any of you have been following Island Sanctuary, definitely enjoy that. It's also getting to that end of the expansion where maybe we do a collab. This time around, it'll be the Fall Guys collaboration. They went over this in the part 1 of the live letter. So I look forward to more details on that. And just rounding out the patch. New custom deliveries. Little UI update. So any of you that do ethereal reduction, you'll now be able to do those consecutively. And any of you that do fishing, there's now green dot indicators on newly logged fish in the fishing guide. And then any of you that are big into Glamour, your optional items will now be stored in the armoire. The armoire being the unlimited version of the Glamour dresser, and the optional items, I believe that sounds like that's the store items. So that would be a pretty big difference to people that keep a lot of that stuff around. They've just been getting better and better. They're also going to go ahead and make it to where you can sort your teleport destinations by expansion. They announced this during FanFest. Obviously, as they add more expansions, they're eventually going to run out of the bar here, so they may need yet more ways, but this will at least last us for a couple years. We'll see. And then we are going to get a new mount for obtaining all of the trial mounts in 6.x, just like we do every other expansion. One of the big changes that got a cheer at FanFest is that the Alliance raids currently are based on item level, so people kind of mess with that system, and that's why you get the same Alliance raids over and over in that roulette sometimes. That's now going to be based on the character level. And the experience and elegant tomestones for each Alliance raid have been adjusted according to difficulty and the time required. So they're just kind of cleaning up that roulette so that people feel less reason to try to game the system, and then they feel less reason to be frustrated when gaming that system doesn't work. And I think that'll be a really good thing. As a reminder of the schedule at this point, what we're looking at is 6.5 releasing early October, in late October going into that 6.51. Keep in mind that usually 0.1s are 1 to 2 weeks after the patch, but this time around, I think it's meant to kind of help stall the fact that it's an enormous distance from the typical 56-ish days, roughly 8 weeks, that we were expecting from 0.5 to 0.55, this being over 100 days. So it's going to be basically double that time, and it's trying to span the gap as they try to get Dawn Trail back on time for the time of year, because Yoshi P said he didn't like a December release. So as they try to kick out the expansion release date, they're trying to just basically stall. The alternative would have been giving us a 0.6 patch, which is why you hear people clamoring for something like that. We've never had one before, but that's where that request comes from. As we look at job adjustments when they went over theirs, the goal is to just mess with potency and kind of clean that up. They showed off some of the stuff with the new boss. So if you want to see those, we did get a chance to kind of see a little bit of it. Nothing too shocking. He showed a couple of mechanics, but it was just normal, and he's in God mode, so it didn't really reveal anything. We are getting in Crystalline Conflict a new arena called the Red Sands. This will be launched in patch 6.51, as well as a minimap and some UI updates. The big ones here are that it's easier to now tell what team you're on, and there is now going to be a line both on the bar and on the ground to show your comeback point, how far you have to make it back to be tied or to take over the lead. So there's this little yellow dash. And so the progress guide is going to make it a little easier, as well as any of you that play without background music, when the game starts to go into overtime, it's going to count down nice and big. They're also going to go ahead and clean up certain actions such as pets and all of that to make it easier to tell friend versus foe. So you're not trying to run out of something that a friend is doing. You can just ignore it. The Red Sands Pit, he showed off a little bit of gameplay from it. Has a couple of interesting things. There's a little oasis here that tosses a big long heal on there, and that heal lasts a long time. So I think that'll be really intriguing in what that does, as well as he messed around and he got like eaten by a big bug thing that, you know, there was a Sabatender and that looked soakable, and there was like a big bug that ate the Dragoon. So just some nice little gimmicks to mess with. Should be a good time. They showed off a couple of the sets. The one that jumped out to me is right here. And this is purchasable with the Crystalline Conflict little tome trophy crystal things. And then we look at the new Alliance raid. Looks absolutely stunning. Can't wait. The Alliance raids are some of my favorite content on launch because they're just chaos. The sets look awesome. They showed us tank. They showed us ranged. And then they showed us scouting, as well as caster. And that's all they showed us. They jumped into the housing items. So the housing items look great. I think the stairs were the thing that people were most excited about. But always adding new housing. New glams. There'll be lots of stuff to have in here. This one's coming a little later. This Kappa suit here. A little closer to 7.0. I'm really excited about it. And then some mounts. We got a little pixie that can carry you. And then we got a couple of little minions. As well as this Lunatender. Big, goofy, noodly guy when he's flying, and he kind of gracefully runs. Nice little, like, lawnmower of a motorcycle. And a UFO that just carries you around like you're mid-abduction all the time. Now, here's where we get to the big announcements. At the end is usually either when you get no announcements or big announcements. And the big announcement is in the interest of expanding our server infrastructure options in the future. Specifically in the context, he said, people who had login issues at the launch of Endwalker, they want to explore the use of cloud data centers to consider them. The North American Cloud Data Center will be temporarily implemented for the purposes of a public stress test during the 6.5x series. So definitely go give that a go. See if that can be a way to offload demand when the expansion launches. That could be really great. There's also a KFC collab. It looks like it's just JP only. So we'll see if that makes its way over here. You've been seeing this circulate around on Twitter, but there is now a tabletop role-playing game. So if any of you like doing turn-based RPGs, there's now a 14-based one. I believe this is the first time a Final Fantasy game has been brought to the tabletop in this way. And then for anybody that makes it to Japan, there's an in-person concert. And so that's it. We have a 24-hour maintenance going into this patch. They'll do a patch note reading during maintenance. The free trial going on. Gonna get bigger. FanFest right around the corner, October 22nd. Congrats to those of you who got tickets. They said for Japan, they already have 3 times as many people requesting those early access tickets or whatever they called those as there are tickets. So good luck to everybody over there. And that is everything. That's the full patch note reading. Nice and fast. Thank you guys. And I look forward to seeing patch 6.5 with you.